Listen only mode.
Hello, Mr. Nasser, you can please start the session. Thank you.
Yeah. You already introduced, is it?
Yes, you can please start the session. Thank you.
Okay. Very good afternoon to all of you, my dear friends. I'm very happy to be part of this NEN webinar, and it's a very interesting topic, how to grow your business. Before we get on to the subject, I just wanted to take you through, in terms of the context setting, why this subject and why it is important. You know, every single business owner wanted to really scale up their business, go to the next level, and they face a lot of challenges as they go in. Before we get into starting of the business, things looks pretty rosy. As we go ahead, a lot of challenges that we come across in between. Especially when you are a 3 or 4 year old company, you've reached a certain level and you really wanted to go to the next level. That's where the real challenge starts. So we as a company got into business about 15 years plus now. So the same thing that we also have gone through. So in that particular process, we've been doing a lot of research to find out what exactly the steps that we need to get into, what kind of a process that we need to follow, how can we make our business to the next big level. So we've been reading a lot of books, getting into seminars, trying to understand the stories of various successful business houses, and we have come across a lot of these kind of steps that they've been doing. So a couple of books that I wanted to refer here before we actually get on to this program. One is called Great to Grow by Edward D. Hess, and another one is Every Business is a Growth Business by Ram Charan. So these two books have kind of inspired me to really take a lot of inputs from this particular session, and we also been trying to put in a lot of practice. Especially the book Great to Grow gives a lot of practical inputs in terms of how an organization can really grow and what are the steps that they need to take before they actually get on to growing more. With that context, let me straight away get on to this program. The first thing that we want to talk about is the myth about growth. There are 3 myths which actually we want to address. The first one is all growth is good. The second myth is bigger is always better. The third myth is business must grow or die. So these are the general myths about people, you know, always growth is good and we need to be bigger so that automatically things will become better. And if an organization is actually not growing, it eventually die. That's what the myth that we have. But that if you really look at it, growth can be good or it can be bad. Too much of growth before preparation can overwhelm people, process, and control. So what exactly I mean by this? If you really wanted to grow big, you need to really get the systems and process, the back end strong. Now, I know that you all will probably would have heard about this 5P, proper planning prevents poor performance. Those are the 5 P's that we're talking about. So anything that we wanted to start off, we need to have a clear-cut planning. Sometimes organizations get excited and they keep on looking at only the number of customers coming in, number of business, number of stocks, they all increase it, but there are certain basic backends they miss out. Because of that, the organization actually gets into a serious problem. So the truth is basically what we need to really understand is that a growth can stress the following. The growth can stress quality. If you really wanted to grow and if you're not really prepared properly, there'll definitely be a lot of quality issue will come. And since you're really not planned, your overheads probably will go up. Your working capital can probably suffer. The cash flow that you're trying to work on will probably get disturbed. So it stress financial control. The more you wanted to really grow, your focus is not going to be there. Suddenly you have more things coming into place. So your customers' value proposition, imagine they have a less number of customers, that's a spur of customer, you will not be able to really handle them. An example in a retail outlet, especially during the Diwali or a Christmas time, you see a number of people who walk into the store is very, very high, and the store cannot really handle the customers at that point of time. Like that, it applicable to any other business that you're talking about. And of course, it also dilutes the culture. Every organization has got a set of culture, set of process that they follow. Just because of the growth, it kind of gets disturbed. It will also put you into a different competitive space altogether. You may be enjoying a very small kind of an outlet, catering to close to about 2 to 3 streets or maybe about 5 streets in a particular area. Suddenly the customers, you are actually trying to cater to a next big thing. Let's say, for example, you have a store which is typically a small supermarket. It's about 3,000 square feet, and you're pretty much handling it yourself with some three or four people, and of course with some few support staffs. Now suddenly if you scale up, you go from 3,000, you become a 20,000 square feet, immediately you start fighting with all the major retail outlets like Big Bazaar or any of that sort. So the moment you get into a next big level, so your competition automatically going to be increased. So that's what we're talking about, putting yourself into a different competition altogether. So there's been a lot of research going on what exactly need to be growing, how we need to grow, what are the aspects that we need to look at it, and it actually gives you some data in terms of what are the steps that we need to really look at it, and there's a research, and I wanted to share this data with you. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is growth is actually not equal to profit. Just because you're growing by numbers, it doesn't mean that you can grow. Any company which seriously wanted to grow, they either start focusing on the top line, that means they increase the revenue, automatically it hits a bad bottom line, that means the profit will not go. But a company which does both the things simultaneously is very, very rare in number. There was a study done close to about 100 years, close to about 100 companies, looking at a period of 10 different years, trying to figure out what exactly would be the number of companies that can sustain both top line and bottom line growth. And the result is actually very astonishing, and it's only close to about 4 to 5% of the company can do that over a period of 10 years. So that's the number that we're talking about. So we need to be very clear in terms of what exactly we're trying to grow. So growth not equal to profit. The second aspect that we're trying to talk about is here, growth requires excess management capacity. That means you need to have a lot of process in place, you need to have a lot of people in place, you need to have a certain system in the organization to handle those growth efficiently and effectively. So you need to have that kind of a management bandwidth. The last and most important thing about this particular aspect is that growth is more likely to occur in spurts instead of linear. If you're trying to take the growth one step at a time, it may not happen. Suddenly there could be a possibility that suddenly the growth will happen. So the research again goes on to say that you cannot expect, okay, I'm growing about 5% this month, 6% next month, 7% a month after that. So we cannot really predict that kind of a growth. So what exactly the highly consistent, high performance companies have? So there are certain things that the highly consistent, high performance companies have. The one thing that they all have is the strategic focus. So a company which is very clear in terms of what exactly they want to do. Typically an entrepreneur company, it is not something that they start with everything set in place, everything is ready in place. So they start with a small way, humble way. somewhere it could be mostly it will be one or two people, and then the day goes on, the business keeps going up. They start investing one after the other. They take the revenue, a portion, some part of it, and keep investing in the business keep growing gradually. As this happens, we tend to lose focus because the business opportunity keeps coming. So if you really wanted to grow, you need to have a strategic focus. Some of the very famous strategic focus you must have come across long back. A company by name GE. I know that you will agree. It was one of the best company in the world. So GE, when Jack Welch took over the company, he had a strategic alignment focus which says that whatever businesses the GE is into, it will either be number one or number two. So what if they're number three, they probably get out of the business or they sell it. That's what the strategy they do. Like that, you need to be really be focusing on what exactly the strategic focus that your organization has to go on. So give you another local example. There's a restaurant here in this part of the country, and of course they have some multiple outlets across Tamil Nadu, in Chennai and Coimbatore and all the places. So this particular restaurant is absolutely focused on quality. So they don't mass produce. They look at every single thing which primarily focuses on quality. So that's what we're talking about. So if you really wanted to grow steadily, consistently, you need to have a strategic focus. The second aspect that we're trying to talk about here is the operational excellence. So again, I want to give you an example this time from the Middle East, from United Arab Emirates, especially Dubai. There's this company which is basically into FMCG distribution, and it's typically it's a 40-year-old company, typically started by an entrepreneur in a very small way, selling vegetables and trading vegetables, trading grocery products. So when the second generation took over this company after their international exposure and a management graduation, the first thing that they did is they started implementing SAP. So you all know that the FMCG business, especially when it comes to trading and wholesale, the profit margin will be very, very thin. So the only way that you can really control could be in terms of the excellence in operation, in terms of the time that you respond to it, in terms of buying, in terms of handling the entire thing in a very short duration. So you need to have your operational excellence in place. So in order to do that, you need to probably invest some time, money, and effort in trying to focus on that particular thing. And this particular company was able to tune of system high performance companies. They have something called constant improvement. Again, I want to take an example of a very small, very famous restaurant which is in Kerala, especially in a place called Calicut, and they have branches now in Dubai as well. So this particular restaurant, if you look at Calicut as a town, I've been closely studying a few restaurants there. So if you look at, there are a couple of restaurants, it's been more than 40, 45 years old now, but this particular restaurant has got its own niche. So they've kind of improved on a lot of products in terms of, the menu, the recipe. You have some different varieties of restaurants, and it's very expensive restaurant, but still people go there. So a constant improvement is something which is very, very important. And any kind of business that you're into, you need to be really focusing on that particular thing. The next thing that highly consistent, high performance companies have is the customer centricity. So every company, whether it is small, big, you speak to them, what is their customer service, they'll definitely say that our customer service is good. But what exactly is the definition of a customer service? So if you look at, the real customer service, if you really want to understand the real customer service, probably you have to go out of India, try and go visit some different outlets in the US, you will get to know exactly what it is. I want to share a couple of examples here. During one of our recent visits to the United States, we went to a water theme park. It's called Water World at the San Diego. In that particular Water World, we had a pass from the hotel. It's a coupon where you get about 8% discount at the entry. So we were trying to give it that particular brochure, and she was able to, the particular person in the reception, the entry counter, she looked at the brochure upside down, and she came out with saying that if I use this particular code, you'll probably make 24% discount. Is it okay? $24 discount. Is it okay for you? So we were really surprised, and we said, yeah, of course, we would definitely love to have it. So how many of us really go out of the way to really find reasons to help a customer really well? So another example that I wanted to give you, we were at the store called Toys R Us, and we were trying to buy something, and a friend of mine was actually asking him, is there any extra discount possible? So immediately they went online and they checked up the similar kind of products available in different outlets in that particular country, and they were able to check the price online. And the lady again came back and said, there's another store which sells at so and so price, so I'm going to reduce another $5 fee. So this is something which is extraordinary. So any company which actually trying to get into the focus of customer centricity is really going to grow big. Now, what exactly is the customer centricity? It is not just one or two people in the organization keeps focusing on it. It is that every single person in the organization should have this centricity, customer orientation in terms of what exactly the company stands for. What is the differentiation that we can have? Right from the security guard of your office to the reception, to everybody, right from even the CEO, all of them should speak the same language. Are you really looking at the customer centricity that deep? It's a question that we need to ask. The last and most important thing that we're talking about here is the high employee engagement. The company who really wants to grow big, they want to really pep up the team has to be empowered, the team has to be given a lot of liberty and freedom to do or take their own responsibility to drive it across. Another story, interesting story, there's a hypermarket in Qatar. This company was actually started big 1 year, they did extremely well, suddenly there's a management change, some issue between the directors, and the company went down. Around 4 or 5 people, the core people, the managers took that responsibility when the company was about given back to the same old team. They took the entire responsibility, rebounded it, and made sure that within about 1 year, 1.5 years time, they were able to make this outlet in a profitable way. And who did this? Not from the director team, just by about 4 or 5 top managers who took the responsibility and driven it. And these are people who are not from a fancy degree from the best to the B school. They just committed people. It's all because the MD of the company gave them a lot of empowerment to take such kind of a decision making to drive it across. So a company really wanted to grow big. You need to really empower your people and take them to the next level. So a more realistic view of looking at the growth, as an entrepreneur, we don't have much time, so we have very little time. How are we really going to allocate certain time in terms of growth? The second aspect that we're trying to look at when you're planning for growth is that any growth that you're trying to do requires more money. So can you afford that kind of an investment, or where else can you find the source to invest? The third thing that we're talking about here is the more competitive you will automatically become, you're trying to grow, because you are actually trying to get into the next segment, next market, next geographical area, next reach to the customer, so automatically you get noticed, and you need to have that kind of bandwidth to handle them. And if suppose you're not handle the growth properly, you will be getting into a huge destructive mode. So you need to definitely be planning your growth efficiently. There's a set of questions that I want to actually expose to. This is something which is a very interesting tool, and you can use this tool so that you exactly know why you need to grow. The first question that we are asking in this particular risk assessment tool is, why should you grow? What exactly is the reason that you wanted to grow? Do you want to really reach out to more people? Do you want to create a brand? What exactly is the reason that you really wanted to grow? The second thing that we're talking about is how we grow. Are you going to increase your product to the existing market, or are you going to take your new product to a different market? The third thing that we're talking about is how much should we grow in terms of the percentage of growth you're talking about, in terms of the number of products that you wanted to reach. It's a kind of the size. One has to decide in terms of what kind of a size of growth that they're looking at. The next thing that we're talking about here is how much growth can we afford. As I told you before, every organization has some kind of a bandwidth in terms of infrastructure, people, and process and money. So what kind of a growth can we as a company afford? Do we have enough people? The moment you're trying to grow, you're looking at, you have one outlet, you want to go to the next outlet, outlet, the first and foremost thing comes is, okay, do we have enough people? And the next question, which is a follow-up question on this, do we have the right kind of people? Now you have people that we talked about is enough people is about quantity, the right people is about the quality of people. Do we have the right kind of people who can really take that kind of responsibility to take your business to the next level? The next and most important thing that as we see the business scenario today, one of the biggest challenges that the organization has got today is getting the right kind of people. If you have an idea, there are some venture capitalists who can fund. With the money, you can buy any kind of technology, machine, infrastructure, you can build it. But the people is definitely a big asset. So getting the right kind of people is another big challenge. So what kind of a system that you have in your organization in terms of hiring them? Do you use any psychometric assessment tools when you're hiring it out? Are you really know exactly what kind of a people you're looking at, what kind of a competency that you're looking at, what kind of a behavioral pattern that you expect from each one of your employees? So are you having such kind of a clarity in terms of who has to be recruited and for what position, what kind of person has to come in? So you need to have that kind of a hiring and training process. The next thing that we're talking about is, of course, the obvious question of adequate financial controls. Now that you invested money, you are looking at a growth. When you have relatively a small set of operation, when you have really a small set of business, you can control a lot of things because you see every single day you get to go to that particular place. But certain times when you really want wanted to grow, you have multiple offices, a lot of things happen on finance, is because they don't have the adequate financial control. So finance is a very, very important thing. The reason that we are in business is to make money, and if we are not really focused on that particular aspect, and if it will be like a blind spot, and that's going to cost a lot of damages to us. The next thing that we're talking about is that, again, if you're trying to mass produce, if you're trying to have more number of things focused on a growth, the general tendency is that we lose out on quality. So what are the kind of a control mechanism that you have for these two things? So you need to have a clear definition in terms of what exactly need to be done. Once you define it, then you need to probably have some tools to measure, whether it is financial or quality aspects. The next question that we're talking about here is how will growth create risks of following parameters. So there are certain risks when it comes to growth, and what are they? The first and foremost thing we're talking about is culture. So the famous quote goes like this: the culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you have the right kind of a culture in your organization, the organization can definitely grow leaps and bounds. So what kind of a culture your organization has got? Just because of this growth dimension, is there a possibility for a change in the culture setup, or will there be any risk in terms of that culture getting damaged? The second thing is about customer service. Obviously, we discussed about it. So what kind of a damage that it can happen just because you wanted to grow exponentially? Of course, customer experience. What kind of experience that customers have when they start doing business with you, or when they are existing business giver in your business? The kind of a cash flow, what kind of a risk that it can create in terms of the cash flow coming in. Supply chain, suppose if you are in a manufacturing or trading, what kind of materials that you want, what time you want, just in time, all kind of related stuff. In terms of the distribution and delivery, in case you're looking at selling your products in different locations, what kind of a mechanism that you have in terms of distribution, what kind of a delivery mechanism that you have that you can, the existing capacity can handle. So that's another thing. The last most important thing is the financial safety net. You know, when you go for fishing, you throw a bigger net, probably you get a bigger intake. The same way, what kind of a bandwidth that you can have in terms of your financials. So how much can you stress? How long can you wait? The sustenance period and so on and so forth. So that's about the financial safety net that we're talking about. The next and most important thing is that what are the strategies that you have? What are the ways and means that you can lessen those risks? Now we have seen those 6, 7 7 different risk components that we talked about, is there a possibility that we can reduce certain things? I know that all of us cannot really have all the things in place when you really wanted to grow. At least there are some important aspects that we need to have control on, or certain aspects that we need to have little less than focus, or sometimes initially the risk may be higher, but do you have a strategy in place where you can lessen those risks? The next thing that we're talking about is, do you have adequate daily information to monitor these risks? Do you have a kind of a dashboard system? There are some softwares available, or even you can keep some control mechanism in the form of an Excel sheet. You can try and do that. You can create templates on the most critical aspects of information that you need to track on a daily basis, which you need to keep control on. Another important aspect that you need to keep is that you know that these are the information that you are definitely required. So as you wanted to grow up, as you're growing up, you need to have certain people to monitor. You need to take some help from either from a consultant or from a software or from some kind of a team who can constantly check, or you can outsource certain aspects of your business where the data can be given on a periodic basis to tell you where exactly the organization is. So who exactly is going to help you out on these aspects? So how do we need to pace the growth? What kind of a growth pattern that we're looking at? Are we looking at a little more faster pace? Are we looking at a little more slower? Or are we trying to retain the same aspect in different product lines? So if you're selling a multiple products lines, so you need to look at, okay, which are the products that you need to have a little more fasten, which are the areas that you need to have a little more lessen. So you need to have a balance between the accelerator and the brake. Certain area you need to apply the brake, certain area you need to apply the accelerator, depends on how you wanted to grow. So if you look at the growth process, what exactly you need to do, there's a 4-step growth process. It's a very elaborate growth process. I'm here just trying to highlight those process, and it is pretty simple and common sense. You can just work on it. The first thing is about planning. So based on whatever we have seen so far, taking this as an input, you can probably plan it exactly what are the things that you need to do, which product that you wanted to grow, which area that you really wanted to grow. We have a roadmap on that particular parameter. So that's what we're talking about, planning. And once you plan exactly what needs to be done, then you can prioritize in terms of what has to be done first, what has to be done second, what has to be done third. And the third most important aspect, which most of the businesses houses compared to the West fail here in India, is that they don't really know the multiplication process. So because we are very emotional in terms of our business, but the moment you start looking at, okay, I want to build a business, and then slowly I'm looking out for the right kind of buyer, and then I want to sell it out. So when you're trying to sell a business, you need to definitely pass on a lot of information to them. So the moment you look at your business being sold, you will start putting a lot of process in place. So you need to create certain kind of process in such a way you can handhold a transfer to the other people, the kind of a knowledge transfer that you're trying to give it. So you need to have a right kind of a process in place. So this will definitely take your business to the next level. So once your processes are in place, so automatically you can scale up the business to the next big level, because you are pretty much strong in terms of the process, and you exactly know where exactly those challenges are going to come in. If there is a disturbance in one particular area, what needs to be corrected. So you have to have that kind of a process in place. And the last and most important thing in terms of the pacing the growth. What kind of a pace that you wanted to really build it across. So that's what you're trying to look at it in terms of the growth process. So what does it mean to grow a business? Growing what? In everyday terms, what does growth mean to you? Again, we're looking at more customers. See, growth can happen in a very simple format. Either you increase your product range to the existing market, or you have a product and you can take it to the next market. So are you looking at in terms of growing more customers? Are you trying to sell more products or services to the existing customer? Or are you trying to reach out to a new set of customers? And third most important aspect is in terms of the revenue. You want to increase your revenue. The more the revenue it is in place, the more you have a bandwidth to grow. Again, with respect to the revenue, we also have to look at in terms of profits. Some companies are very strategically aligned towards increasing the profit. Some companies are strategically aligned towards increasing the revenue. So if you're looking at doing both, as I discussed before, it's going to be a little more long process, and you can, I mean, every company eventually wanted to get there. So it depends on what exactly you're looking at. What according to you is the meaning of growth in any of these 5 aspects that we talked about. And the sixth one is in terms of the more number of people. There are certain people say that we are a 15,000 team, we are a 10,000 team, we are a 1,000 member team. So somebody will say I mean, most of the people, there are hardly very few people who can say that we are a company who make about 40% profits. We are a company who wanted to make 50% profit next year. They keep talking about more customers. Generally it is boiled down to only the revenue in terms of turnover or in terms of the number of people. So you again, it depends in terms of how you want to look at it. Finally, the last component of this particular presentation is that the 4 ways to grow your business. What are the 4 different ways that you can really grow your business to the next level? The first I will quickly run through what are the 4 things. First thing is the improvements, the kind of improvement that you have to have it in your business. Second thing is the innovations. I'm sure that most of us would have heard about a lot more about this particular area. The third thing is about scaling up, and the fourth thing is about strategic acquisition. So these are typically the 4 broad classification in terms of how can you grow your business. The first thing that we're talking about here is improvement. So anything that we're trying to talk about, the heart of improvement revolves around only one thing. It's all about what can you do to give a better product at a faster time and a cheaper price. So being better, faster, cheaper is one of the core areas that companies work towards innovating, companies work towards improving, companies really seriously looking at a continuous improvement on that particular parameter. But a word of caution at this point of time, there's something called a golden triangle. If you put a triangle and write 3 things on 3 edges, one is called time, another one is called price, the third one is called quality. So if you, in the process of improvement, if you're trying to do all the 3 things, like you want X product at a cheaper price, better quality tomorrow, that means it's very fast. So if you're trying to promise all the 3 things together, it's very difficult to deliver. It's always better to have a policy as a company to promise only 2 things at a time. If they want a better price and the right kind of a quality, they may have to give more time. If they wanted something to be done tomorrow and the quality has to be good, then they need to compromise on the price. So it goes that way. You can put all combination of all these 3 things, you will get a fair bit of idea about how do we look at it. So faster, better, cheaper, yes, if you're trying to do all the 3 things together, there'll be challenges, right? So you have to focus on only 2 things at a time to start with. The second area that we're talking about here is innovation. So innovation is a subject by itself. I'm sure that most of us keep talking about it. If you really wanted to grow, I started off the session this afternoon. We're talking to you about having the top line and bottom line growth together. If you really wanted to grow exponentially, if you really wanted to grow suddenly on a spur, the one vehicle that you can keep holding on is innovation. The moment you try to come out with some new product, then the growth could be amazingly high. So many products can be talked about. It's just an application. A couple of examples that probably I can tell you. Since we are from Coimbatore, there's a very famous sweet outlets, sweet shop here by the name of Krishna Sweets. So 20-25 years back, people, if you look at the Mysore Pak, one particular sweet type, which is like pretty solid, and those days people used to talk about saying something like this. If you eat Mysore Pak, it's like a passport to the dentist, right? So it's very thick and hard. So suddenly this outlet came up with an idea of, why don't we soften this? Why don't we soften this so that it becomes very soft and smooth? So it's a concept by itself, and today that particular outlet called Sri Krishna Sweets is known all over the world only for that particular concept change. So like that, a lot of things you can really look at from our own day-to-day experience. You can see so many things. I'm not really giving an example of Facebook or any of those big companies, because I'm sure that everybody has talked enough and more about it. In your own locality, in your own place, you will find outlets, some of the small things that you would keep on buying every single day, those outlets, those people would have made a lot of changes according to their own capacity, and those are things which really delivers wonderful result for them. So that's how the innovation thing looks at it. The next thing that we're talking about is in terms of scaling up. So the moment we talk about scaling up, the question comes is our idea of scaling up. You know, this person by the name Subrato Bachi, he has written a lot of books, and one such book is The Elephant Catcher, where he's specifically focusing on growth and scaling up. And he tells that the very idea of scaling up is actually disturbs. So if you go and talk to an entrepreneur and speak to them, hey, how are you doing? He says, I'm doing good. What's the kind of business that you do? He says, I do a business of about 5 crores. And the moment you ask him, okay, can you become a 5,000 crore company? The first idea itself is, oh my God, how can I? So the digesting the idea of growth itself is a big thing. So the moment you're trying to talk about scaling up, what size of scaling up that we are talking about? How can we really scale up to that level? So we need to be getting used to the scaling up idea and then try and look at it. Is there a possibility to scale up? And is there a market that can definitely respond to? So looking at all these parameters, you can look at it. The scaling up is basically like a turbocharger for your business. So what ways that you can look at it? If you can really work out with some very experts and some panels or consultants, they'll really give you a lot more roadmap in terms of scaling up. And the last and most important thing is the strategic acquisition, and we have enough and more stories about this. A major retail chain acquired, and overnight the store has just become from 100 stores to 1,500 stores. It's all because of the strategic acquisition, and the way in which you acquire a company requires a lot more things to be done, and there are some strategic acquisition experts and consultants who can help us to really take it to our next level. To sum up the growth plan, what you need to do, you need to create a product that is different. You need to look at in what way you can increase your efficiency in terms of manufacturing. What kind of a brand that you can create. These are some of the strategies that you can work out. Can you try and create a new customers by expanding or taking your product to the different level? Or can you come up with some exclusive customer segment where there is a lot more possibility to increase your value proposition? Can you be the first mover advantage? You know, anything that comes the first mover, we definitely go all out and pay more. I'm sure that you probably recall the mobile phones that we are using. The initial days when it came, we paid around 16 rupees, 17 rupees per minute. So just imagine what is the scenario then and what's the scenario now. It's all because the first mover, anything in business gets major advantage. The next thing that we're talking about here is incorporating new national standards. So what was the standard few years back has become a norm today. You know, say for example, years back, if you're a graduate, people look at you. Today, it's just a default setting. And initial days, 15 years back, an ATM is something that's a very big thing. A bank having an ATM is a big thing. But today, it's no big thing at all. So it's a question of what is the kind of a new standard that your product or services can dictate in the market. And finally, what kind of a service differentiation that you can do. So these are the strategies that we looked upon. The last 1 minute, I just wanted to quickly run through what we've looked at it and some of the very important aspects. Growth can either be good or bad. Growth before preparation can upset process, people, and control in an organization. Growth is not equal to profit. Just by growing, you can't be profitable. Strategy before growth should be the focus. You know, you need to be having a very clear-cut plan in terms of what growth. A strong back-end team helps sustainable growth. So we need to have both the thing in mind. So you need to look at the 360-degree analysis before you actually get on to really growing. And we also talked about looking at the customers, trying to work on more focus towards customer and trying to address focused improvements to what exactly the customers are looking at. Growth also requires more people, more strategy, and control mechanism. Thinking about strategy growth needs discipline. So you need to have a focused thinking. And then we talked about those risk assessment tool, about 14 different questions. I would recommend you to please spend some 2-3 days on that particular questionnaire and then try and ask a lot of things revolve around that and try to create a plan for that. It will definitely take you closer to where you wanted to really grow. Again, the growth requires scaling up of manufacturing, production, sales, service, distribution, your HR, finance, accounting, all those things. So do you have that kind of a setup right now? Growth definitely causes a lot of expenses before revenue is received. That means you need to pump in a lot of money today in order to wait and get it or get the benefit later. Growth requires prioritization. So about how will you grow and how will you implement. So you need to have a plan for today, tomorrow, and the future. Growth can be worked out in a phased manner. So you can have the big picture and then try to take a small component of the big picture and start working towards phased manner. So as I told you, these are the references that I want to talk to you about. The 2 books I already explained to you, but the third one is about E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Another amazing book about how can you replicate the business model and take it to the next level. So with that, I thank you for being part of it, and we will just now take a few questions, a couple of questions, and then probably I will try and field some questions for you.
Thank you, Mr. Nasser, for that wonderful and informative session. So let's go ahead with the question answer session right now. So the first question is by Mr. Anand Kumar. So his question goes like this. As you said, growth is not equal to profits. Then how can you term a growth for a company as positive or negative? As you know, everyone measures the company's growth in terms of profit and profitabilities. How should we justify a growth without profit?
No, actually, also that's a very interesting question. No, I'm not saying that all the growth cannot lead to profit, but our objective as a business owner is basically trying to be profitable, as you rightly put it across in the question. Now, before we look at the profitability, the moment you have an eye, I think now that you already have a very clear focus in terms of he is growing because of profit, but everybody need not necessarily be looking at that particular thing. Especially on an entrepreneurial organization where the number of people on the top are very less. There are one owner or 2 owners, 2-3 partners. So the CEO's job at the top is known. So he tends to take some mistakes. So the question here is, if you are having a roadmap very clearly in terms of, okay, this is the kind of a growth that I have, and this year, okay, this year I may not make that kind of a profit. Maybe next year I will do. Only when I have this many numbers coming in, I will be profitable. As long as your roadmap is very clear, and if you know exactly what are the things out of the plan that you're creating, and if you have a 20% of contingency or something which is beyond control, if that kind of a planning that you've done, and if you are ready with growth, I'm sure growth can automatically equal to profit. But it's just a metaphorically saying that don't try to grow for the sake of growth. As long as you're clear about profit, it's good. So on that context is what this entire presentation was actually driven down.
Thank you. Yeah. So the next question is by Mr. Vinod, and here goes the question. Is profitability more important or growth in early stage of a startup?
It depends. Again, it depends on the person who actually trying to promote the promoter, the entrepreneur. Every stage of the business, there are 3 different stages in business. One is called the incubation stage. The second one is called the implementation stage, and the third stage is called the eminent stage. So if you look at the stories of different business houses all across the globe, the incubation stage start right from the idea go from the business setup till you reach a particular stage. It takes close to about 7 years to 15 years. In the earlier days, it was even taking 22 years. Like a company like Ford, it took almost 22 to 27 years. Walmart took that kind of a time. So if you look at these phases in growth, the initial stages, yes, in order to set the one thing right, you need to definitely be looking at more of consistency, more of considerable systems and process, more of a lot of things in place to ready. So the moment you are ready to grow, it can grow bigger. So to start with, yes, there are certain companies, especially the small office, home office kind of setup, where their ambition is not that very big. So they'll be looking at more of a profit on a month-on-month basis, or they have a very clear-cut plan. Okay, this is the kind of size that I want to grow. Whereas typically an organization is about 15 people, 20 people to start off, and they wanted to grow about 1,000 people team, then you need to probably sacrifice a little bit on the profit. But I would probably, in my personal opinion, I feel the profit has to come from day one. So the more the profit, maybe the profit can gradually increase. But by and large, if you look at it, in an entrepreneurial setup, this is how it works. But if suppose as a larger company, the greenfield project, somebody else, the foreigner, the equity fund, somebody else comes and pump in money, so everything is set at the beginning and then you start, that's a different ball game altogether. But typically an entrepreneurial kind of a setup, to start off with, it gradually grows in, but you need to have profit. If profit is like blood for our body. If you're not profitable, you'll not be able to sustain on a longer period of time. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's the end of the whole session. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Mohammed Nasser for, enlightening all of us regarding how to grow your business. So we thank you on behalf of NEN and Wadhwani Foundation. And last but not the least, for all the audience who would listen to this wonderful webinar, thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.